The following conversations are taken from our channel membership exclusive weekly live show that we do on Saturdays from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time called Members Talk Live. Find out how you can become a member and appear on the show. All of the information is down in the description below, as well as all of the links to the channels of today's guests. Check them out, and I hope to talk with you very soon. Let's get into some of these topics that we got planned for today, man. So this is kind of one that's been making the rounds for a little bit now. Thomas Haden Church, I don't know why he hasn't been corrected or something yet. I don't know, but he keeps talking about this idea that Sam Raimi is going to do a Spider-Man 4. He keeps getting into these conversations with interviewers, asking if he's coming back in the Marvel universe and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe he's speaking out of terms. Maybe he actually does know something, but here's what he had to say. He was on comicbookmovie.com, and they asked him about doing a Sideways reunion with Paul Giamatti, which he says is probably never going to happen. They've discussed it a couple times, but it's not looking likely at all. But one thing that could happen is Spider-Man 4. This is what he had to say. But Sandman, there's been some rumors that they might ask me to do another Spider-Man, and I'd do it tomorrow, Church continued. You know, they've never asked me to show up in another movie, another Marvel movie. He added when Chris Killian suggested Secret Wars as a possible place for Church to pop up. But, you know, I think Sam is going to do another Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. And that's the one that they had an option for me to do Spider-Man 4 when there was going to be a Spider-Man 4. They had an option for me to come back. So if it happens, that would be fantastic. I'm getting a little old now. So he's suggesting that originally when Sam Raimi was going to do Spider-Man 4, you know, we've seen some of the storyboards released until, you know, Sony killed it and they went on and did The Amazing Spider-Man. He's suggesting that he was going to be back for that movie. And whether or not he doesn't understand the deals going on with Marvel and Sony right now, he's talking about Sam saying he's probably going to do another Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire. Now, do you think that this is him maybe just like not really in the loop of what's going on and just kind of hopeful, wishful thinking, putting it out into the universe? Do you think there's actually legitimate talks going on of Sam Raimi doing Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire? Because I would be stoked. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd be stoked if we actually got Spider-Man 4 with Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire. And I mean, if you're going to do it, now's the time to do it. With the multiverse saga and everything going on, audiences can accept different universes and the same character in different universes at this point. The question is, though, like, is it actually going to happen? What do you think about all this, man? Do you think that he's just talking out of his butt? Do you think that he actually has some secret information that we just don't have and that this is actually a possibility? Oh, we lost your audio.
Oh, it's muted. There we go.
There you
go. In my honest professional opinion, I think Thomas Haden Church might be the butt of some jokes in Hollywood. Like, I think that Sam Raimi might see him every now and then, and he probably hey, when are we gonna do that? And he just gives him the wink and thumbs up, like, oh yeah, we're working on that, you know. Like, I don't see Spider-Man 4 happening with Sam Raimi. He doesn't strike me as the person who is like beating down the doors to do this. Like, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong because Sam Raimi is Sam Raimi. He's an icon. He could really, like, to me, he should be able to do anything that he wants to do. Like, he should be able to say, hey, you know, I want to do another Evil Dead with Bill Campbell right now and it get greenlit. And it doesn't matter what the script is. Like, he has that type of track record in Hollywood where, like, you know, you're going to get a quality product other than Spider-Man 3. Like, you're going to get greatness from him. You're going to get that Sam Raimi style. But I don't think that Thomas Haden Church has any insider information. And if he did, he wouldn't be like spilling it the way he is. I think he's doing it for publicity. Like, he's doing it to kind of keep his name in people's mouths, you know. But I mean, and no fault of his. Like, I mean, I would try to wish this into existence too, because any Spider-Man bag is a win. Like, any Spider-Man role, like him coming back for No Way Home is a win for him. Like that's huge. So I would keep talking about it until hopefully somebody's like, oh, people do want to, like, if you see on X, if there's like millions of people retweeting whatever he says, like they would take that and like, oh, maybe we should look into this, you know. So
Yeah.
I think it's more wishful thinking than it is like actually gonna happen.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Spider-Man 4 would make a buttload of money. Like, I think it would
Oh
be
yeah.
a huge success if they did a Spider-Man
Oh yeah.
4. But like going back to like Sam Raimi having like any interest, he's definitely expressed interest. I mean, Spider-Man 3 ended so poorly for him, like his relationship with Sony and everything, and and I think Sam Raimi would go for a shot at redemption if he had the option, like if he had the opportunity. My only thing with Spider-Man 4 ever actually happening is I think the roadblock is always going to be Sony, because Sony hasn't changed since Spider-Man 3. They still are heavily involved in the direction of where their Spider-Man properties go. And if they were to do Spider-Man 4, it would be under Sony's authority. And with their whole Madam Web and Venom and Craven, like I just feel like they would force Sam Raimi to somehow include that, to somehow tie it all in, like Spider-Man 4, bring it over into our Venomverse and bring publicity to our Venomverse. Like I just feel like in the same way that the rumors are that Andrew Garfield was in talks to come back for a Spider-Man 3 or whatever it was, and he declined because he didn't want to be a part of the Sony Marvel universe, or he just didn't like the direction that they wanted to go with it. I feel like the same would happen with Sam Raimi if he was even given the chance to pitch what could we do for Spider-Man 4. I feel like it would just get roadblocked by Sony trying to dictate where he takes the story and how to include it into their spin-off movies to get those more popular along with the Spider-Man 4 popularity. I think that's the biggest factor as to why it probably won't happen. And also Kevin Feige at Marvel, I feel like they have a relationship. Sam Raimi and Kevin Feige have a relationship for sure. I think they respect each other. I think they like each other. But on the business side, I don't think Marvel wants another Spider-Man running around while they're trying to do their Spider-Man in the MCU. I feel like there'd be some conflict there and some friction between the two studios if they tried to do that. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's any chance at all that we could see a Spider-Man 4 happen in the near future?
So as you were speaking about Sony, I almost threw up in my mouth because I really hate Sony. Like when you start tying in Madam Web, oh man, you're right though. That's the bad thing. Is you're absolutely correct. Sony would for sure try to do something to like Sony-fy this movie to tie it all in, and it would be the worst thing that they could do with anything. They would bring in Sydney Sweeney because she's hot. You know, she's the hot it girl in Hollywood. That's what I meant. Like to be a Spider Woman in this, it would just be terrible. Like anything that Sony touches, it makes me nauseous. They've really ruined everything that there is to love about Venom. They've ruined everything there is to love about any Spider-Man adjacent character. Like I didn't care about Morbius. I didn't want a Morbius to happen. I wanted a Craven to happen. I didn't want a Craven solo film to happen. I wanted
Yeah.
Craven's Last Hunt. I've said this. I say this every time I get a chance to. Like I want that story on the screen. And we're
Dude, if
never gonna
Sam
see that.
Raimi did Craven's Last Hunt, like, oh, could you imagine at the helm of Sam Raimi?
It just the tickets sell themselves. Like Sam Raimi directs this. You have, and you could even have Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think that's his name. Like you could have him because he's awesome. He looks great as Craven.
Hmm.
Like, but just Sony can't get out of their own way. They're gonna figure out ways to make terrible movies that somehow make them a profit. Like, and they just keep going with it because they want to keep the rights. Where Sandman would fit in any of this, I don't see it. Like, I don't see him fitting in any scenario because he's not that great of
Yeah.
a villain. And Thomas Hayden Church said it. He is getting old. Like, if they would actually do a Sandman, they probably would cast a different character because he's in his 60s now, maybe 50s.
Or they just do
So
complete CGI like they did for No Way Home.
oh,
Just have a
please no.
voiceover.
Yes, and that was terrible. Like, I think it would have really served it, because I think the only scene he showed up when was like deleted scene from like the Amazing Spider-Man. Like, it was like, yeah, it was that was a bad idea. Like, that was one of the missteps of No Way Home, was not actually having him in the film, like having it all CGI. But yeah, like I don't foresee him playing any part in it. And Sam Raimi, stay away from Sony. Like, please don't. Like, don't just let Sony be Sony. Let Sony make Madam Web sequels that nobody watches. I will not go see another Madam Web movie. I went to see that one to review bomb it, and I didn't even drop my review for it because it was that terrible.
Your disdain for Sony always makes me laugh.
Yes, it did. They're terrible.
So, do we buy or sell that Spider-Man 4, despite what Thomas Hayden Church is saying, will actually happen?
Oh,
Unfortunately, I think
yeah, I
there's
have
too
to
much
sell it.
standing in
Yeah.
its way. It kills me. It kills me because I want it. I want it, but
So in that vein, I think we're gonna see, and unfortunately, Tobey Maguire is gonna be too old once we see this. Like, so the DC universe is gonna have two Batman movies. They're gonna have the Batman, and then they'll
yep.
have Brave and the Bold. So we're gonna see how audience react to two different
Mhm.
takes on a character. Um, like, I don't think it's gonna really hurt, but I don't like the Batman, the sequel of the Batman, whatever they call it, is gonna make $1 billion. Like, how much the Brave and the Bold takes away from that remains to be seen. If they release them too close to each other, and I think the same thing with Spider-Man movies. Like, if you had two Spider-Man films, one with Tobey Maguire and one with Tom Holland, like,
Mhm.
how much do they eat from each other's, like, because they're both event films, right? Like, we want to
Yeah.
see Tom Holland. We want to see, if Andrew Garfield did one, you will want to see that. But how much do they actually take away from the ultimate? Like, I mean, if both of them made $1 billion, yes, but I don't. In no world do I see that happening where you have two films with the same characters making the exact same money. One has to like kind of cannibalize the audience, and maybe the second one, like if the Batman came out after the Brave and the Bold, maybe because the Brave and the Bold was good, and we know that the Batman is going to be good. Like, we know that Matt Reeves is just a proven commodity. Like, he's not going to make a bad Batman film. I don't see that happening. So maybe, it amplifies one, but it could also take away from another one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because if you were to do a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, both Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire have been established and have a history with the audiences. Whereas it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these Batman, because Robert Pattinson's The Batman is established, but we're going to have a new Batman that no one knows about coming in after his second movie, I think, is when they're going to do Brave and the Bold, is after Batman 2 comes out. So it'll be interesting to see which, like, if the audience leans towards one rather than the other. And if that causes one to do a little less at the box office than the other one does, or if they are able to do like an equal playing field and we just see them both elevate each other, because the Batman was great, so another Batman movie, that's going to be awesome too. And as long as they're both great, they just keep helping each other rise to the top. It's going to be
Yeah.
really interesting. That's a good point. It's going to be really interesting to see how that does for DC, if they just end up like eating themselves or if it's going to actually help them in the long run. Speaking of rumors of returning characters, this one got out of hand, and I just wanted to talk about it because I saw a lot of people online this past week talking about how James Gunn has said that Grant Gustin's The Flash can be in the DCU, and it's just like, no, that's not actually what he said. Now, I love Grant Gustin's Flash. I fell off with the Flash show around season 7. Did you ever watch The Flash with Grant Gustin?
I watched every episode of The Flash, and you fell off at the right time.
Yeah, that's when it got really. Yeah, I could see it. I was like, I don't think this is going well. I don't think I'm going to waste my time on this anymore. Anyways, ever since The Flash, well, ever since Ezra Miller's The Flash came out, people have wanted Grant Gustin to replace him. They've wanted him to be the new Flash in the Flash movies and in the DCU going forward. And now people think that James Gunn has given us a little hint that that might be possible. And no, he hasn't, because this is what actually happened. This comes to us from Superhero Hype. On Threads, Gunn responded to a comment requesting that he cast Gustin as one of the heroes in the forthcoming DCU. Grant is an incredible, talented guy performing now on Broadway. I believe, and is absolutely not going to waste. Is not going to waste just because he's not currently in a DC project. So he was just praising Grant Gustin as an actor, saying he's doing great work now, and that just because he's not the Flash anymore, he's not going to waste. He's doing great stuff on Broadway. Anyways, Gunn said, but of course, I'd love to work with him at some point. So Gustin is best known for starring in online seasons of the CW's The Flash. He played the character in a number of other Arrowverse series as well. In a video shared on Instagram, Gustin said, if James Gunn asked me to play the Flash, I'd do it again. I trust James Gunn. And that is the part when you combine it with James Gunn's comments that the internet is running wild with, that James Gunn is open to having Grant Gustin be the Flash in the DCU. And that's just not what this quote is saying. I mean, if you look at the Flash TV show, it's got its fans. It's beloved by a lot of people. And Grant Gustin, he's going to forever be my Flash. He's the first Flash I ever saw. I loved that show up until about season 3, season 4. And so he has a very special place in my heart as the Flash. But the show is not like a worldwide phenomenon, especially in its later seasons. I mean, if you look at the records, the audience ratings for the final seasons, they are below the millions. They're like 8,000, 7,000 viewers per episode. They have less views than some YouTube videos on some smaller channels have. So while Grant Gustin had a great run as the Flash for sure, I don't think James Gunn is that eager to have him in the DCU, especially as the Flash. Now, whether or not Grant Gustin could come into the DCU as a different character, as a different conversation, I would probably guess probably not. I feel like that might be a little bit distracting to some people, at least at the start of the DCU. I feel like you'd have to get like deep into the DCU. Like if you look at when Chris Evans stopped playing Fantastic Four's Human Torch, was like 2000, what was that, 2008, 2007, something like that. He stopped playing Human Torch, and then he didn't come into another Marvel character till like 2011. So there was a huge number of years between that. And the Flash, it's pretty fresh. It ended pretty recently. It wasn't too long ago that Barry was running around, or Grant Gustin was running around as Barry in the Flash costume. So if he was going to cast him in the DCU, I feel like it'd be from like years from now. And just because he's saying like, I'd love to work with him, that doesn't mean that James Gunn is going to work with him. Like you could make the argument, then why did he even respond to the thread in the first place? If he could just leave it alone, he doesn't have to say something nice about the guy on threads. He could just ignore the comment. You could make that argument. I honestly think this is just him showing respect for the actor. I don't think there's any plans to have him in the DCU. And I think Grant Gustin's comments too is just like, yeah, I'd love to work with James Gunn, because who the heck wouldn't want to work with James Gunn? That's just an actor. That's not news. That's just an actor being like, yeah, hire me. I'll take a job. I'll totally take a job.
Yeah, like
but yeah, but what do you think, man? I mean, this got out of hand, I thought, over this past week. Do you see any way that we see Grant Gustin show up in the DCU?
There is a way. Is it gonna happen? No. I love Grant Gustin as the Flash. I think he embodies what Barry Allen stood for. I think his character, like, so much more than Ezra Miller's portrayal of the character, like, embodied what Barry Allen, the character, the man, stood for. Like, how he was, like, the ultimate hero who would sacrifice himself, in not Flashpoint, the Crisis, right? You have to be a certain type of hero to make that type of sacrifice. Watching Ezra Miller's Barry Allen, I didn't see that, right? I didn't see like a world in which he grows into becoming the hero that the Flash, to me, Barry Allen's Flash is. Now, is he more of a Wally West? Yes. Is he more of like an impulse type character? Yes. So I could see Grant Gustin coming to the DCU if he was the older Barry Allen mentoring a younger Wally West, or Bart Allen, like mentoring a younger Flash. But I don't think James Gunn would ever do that. Like James Gunn fired Henry Cavill, right? Like he's not in the business of bringing back, like if he had a chance, I don't think he would bring back Ben Affleck, who's a huge marketable star who could write and direct a Brave and the Bold movie that would be better than any Brave and the Bold movie that's going to come out. Like James Gunn had an opportunity to bring in these huge stars, and he said no. Like getting rid of Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Getting rid of Jason Momoa, like that's a
Mhm.
risky move. Like, so I don't see him ever bringing Grant Gustin, who's like the lower tier of these major names, to DCU to be the Flash. Like, that wouldn't make any sense because he'll be a little bit older too at the time, and that's why
Yep.
I think like a mentor role, kind of like a Batman was in the Flash, like he could be that only if they were milking a younger person playing either Bart or Wally West, like which I don't think they'll do because Barry Allen's the name. Like Barry Allen is the Flash. Like Barry Allen's everybody's Flash, kind of like Hal Jordan is everybody's Green Lantern. Like
Mhm.
you do John Stewart, but you need Hal Jordan. Like Hal Jordan's the guy.
Right.
Like Hal Jordan is my Green Lantern. No knock at Kyle Rayner or John Stewart, but Hal Jordan is Green Lantern. Like you just don't. Barry Allen is the Flash. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's hard because the TV and the movie audiences are different. Like sometimes they overlap, but for the most part, movie audiences and TV audiences, they're just different audiences. And if you're going to bring Grant Gustin's Flash into the DCU, if you're going to do something down the line, multiverse, Crisis on Infinite Earths, whatever it's going to be, um, bringing in a TV show character and a TV show character whose show it kind of fell off the radar in its later
mhm,
seasons, right? It's got its fans for sure, but it's like a niche. It's a niche fandom. So if you
mhm,
bring him into a narrative role, like a mentor role in one of the movies, it's just too inside baseball. I just don't think that it can work, especially for the general audience. It's gonna feel like an inside joke. It's gonna feel like something just for those niche fans. And you can do it in like maybe an Easter egg type way, like at the end of the Flash when they showed all those worlds. A lot of people were upset that Grant Gustin never got shown, which I can get that absolutely. I think they tried to focus mainly on theatrical characters for the most part, but and Adam West was in there, but Adam West had a theatrical Batman movie in the 60s, so
he
I guess
did.
it kind of
Yes, he
counts.
did.
But yeah, I just think it's tricky to bring his Flash into a movie audience when he was built in TV. And as far as like Grant Gustin being I think it would have to be a new character. If they were
Mhm,
going to do it in any way, shape, or form, I think he would have to be introduced as a new DC hero. I don't think that you could have him tied back to the Flash, and you just have to treat him as if we'd never seen him before, so that the general audience doesn't feel out of the loop. So yeah, that's what I think happened with these comments. I don't think there's any merit whatsoever to James Gunn bringing Grant Gustin into the DCU, especially as the Flash. So when it comes to buy or sell, I'm selling this
yeah, yeah, I'm
hard.
definitely
Yeah.
telling that. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, in no world do you fire Henry Cavill but bring Grant Gustin. Like just that wouldn't make any sense. That would actually upset me, and that would make me not want to see the film more than it will make me want to see the film.
Yeah, and Henry Cavill being like a like theatrical character, he's easier to bring in than Grant
Yes,
Gustin any day.
yes, exactly.
I wanted to talk about this because this is a story that kind of relates to what's going on in the headlines with Coyote versus Acme. Because I've been very, very vocal on this channel about Coyote versus Acme over at Warner Brothers. Completed film, ready to go. The director, the cast were completely blindsided when Warner Brothers decided we don't like this film anymore and we're just going to throw it out. They're doing a tax write off, but they're completely chucking this movie in the garbage. And a lot of people online, myself included, you hear this story and you weren't necessarily anticipating Coyote versus Acme. It's not like it was in my most anticipated movies of the year or anything like that before I heard about this, but it's the fact that it's a high profile movie with the cast and directors vocally coming out as upset, but the studio heads are tossing it in the garbage for no one to see, anyways. Well, Disney seems to be taking a little lesson from how scrutinized Warner Brothers is being with the chucking out of Coyote versus Acme, because Bob Iger has come out and said that this is something that studios need to do. In fact, we're doing it. We just ain't telling anybody about it. This comes to us from Deadline. This is what I had to say. Uh, Disney CEO Bob Iger said the studio has killed a few projects already that we just didn't feel were strong enough. As the company tries to reverse a box office slump, we're doing a lot. When we talk about improving our film slate, there are really three approaches. One is you have to kill things you no longer believe in, and that's not easy in this business because you either you've gotten started, you have some costs. It's a relationship with either your employees or with the creative community, and it's not an easy thing, but you got to make those tough calls. We've actually made those tough calls. We've not been that public about it. He didn't name names today. You have to look at everything you're making that you do believe in, and you have to take a position that's good is not good enough. You have to basically strive for perfection, he said during an investors conference Q&A. Disney had some misfires at the box office, including areas where it's dominated for years, like animation and superhero fare, which activist investors are using as one cudgel. I don't know what that says. As they push to get their outside candidates onto the Disney board. A lot of people, or this is Bob Iger again. A lot of people think it's audience superhero fatigue. It's not audience fatigue. They want great films, and if you build it, great, they will come. He said. He noted that he has made nearly 30 billion from 33 films. Talking about the MCU, we got to return to something akin to that, and I actually am confident that we will. So lots to unpack. Lots to unpack in that statement there. He doesn't flat out say it, but the last little bit of that article kind of indicates he's talking about some Marvel projects. He's talking about some MCU things that might have been in the pipeline that we might know about. Maybe we don't know about it, and they're tossed. They're not working on them anymore. Maybe they're just not. Maybe they're done, and maybe they're just not going to release them. I mean, Bob Iger has said that he wants to pull back on quantity over quality. He wants to pull back on how much they're releasing, how much they're putting out there. So it's interesting because I'm very vocal about Coyote versus Acme. I don't think that they should just toss it, and I'm kind of upset for the filmmakers and the director, especially since people have seen it and say that it's a great movie. It makes me disappointed that it's just getting this treatment. Little bit of a hypocrite though, because I think this is smart for Bob Iger to do. I do think this is smart because when you look at let's just focus on the MCU. I'm sure Star Wars, I'm sure animation is all mixed in here, but let's just focus on the MCU brand, right? We saw how much they were pumping out onto Disney Plus. We saw how much they were pumping out year after year since 2020, and how that really hurt the brand and how that hurt the audience's enjoyment of the brand because each project just wasn't able to get the love and care put into it like it's had in the past for the majority of the time. And I think the testament to it just wasn't working was the Marvels, because the Marvels was kind of their combination of what they've been building on Disney Plus with their theatrical experiences, and it's the lowest grossing Marvel movie they've ever made. I don't even think that thing crossed $300 million worldwide, which is insane to talk about with an MCU project. Insane. So, I mean, I don't have a list prepared, but if I were to guess a couple projects that we're probably not going to see the light of day anymore, I think Ironheart's done because
That was that was the first thing
yeah,
right when I started reading. I was like, Ironheart's done. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
because Ironheart. I mean that thing. I feel like that thing was shot 2 years ago. I feel like because that came out the filming of that happened before the release of Wakanda Forever because she was launching off in Wakanda Forever, and we haven't heard zip. We haven't heard nothing about Ironheart since Wakanda Forever. I mean, the actress hasn't said anything that I know of. There's been no trailers, no promos, no behind the scenes shots. Like, where is this thing? Where is Ironheart? I think it's in the garbage. I think that he tossed it.
mhm.
I don't think Ironheart's moving forward. I think that Vision Quest show, spinning off from WandaVision, I think that's done. I'm going to throw it to you, man. What do you think of these comments? What do you think of Bob Iger secretly canceling project? It's smart on him, actually. Like, seeing what happened to David Zaslav with Coyote versus Acme, just shh, don't say anything. Just toss it. I don't want the reputation that David Zaslav has. Do you agree with this, man? Do you think he's making the right decisions? And if you had to ponder, what do you think is gone that we're supposed to see?
So I'm old enough to remember when DC 13 or D13 was a thing, and they would bring everybody out there and they would have that huge graphic on the screen, and everybody applauded Ironheart, Armor Wars, Agatha Multi
Oh,
something.
D23.
Yeah, D23.
Yeah.
Um, and uh and they put all these names up there and everybody applauded. Everybody was so Blade, and he brought all these actors out there. And that's gone. We're spoiled. Like the MC. I remember. I'm old enough to remember a man flying on TV, like on the movie screen. Superman. Like that was an event. When the X-Men came out, that was an event. It was like, what? We get to see mutants on screen. When Iron Man. Like we got to see these things, and now we've seen it so much that we're spoiled, right?
Mhm.
Like the thought of another movie being Endgame is unfair. Like it's not fair.
Yeah.
Like you're never good. I said this when I reviewed Endgame. We're never gonna see that again. You're never gonna
Mhm.
we're never gonna have that event level movie that's gonna pull us in the way that Avengers Endgame did. Even though Infinity War was a better film, um, it just was a culmination of so many different things. It was the end of an era. Like,
Yeah.
and Marvel's trying to get that back. And I don't disagree with the Disney shows, like per se, because they're smaller projects. They could be Marvel Spotlight, like Echo was. But expecting perfection from your films is like expecting them to be Avenger level films is unfair, because even the first two Avenger movies were not that great. Age of Ultron wasn't that great of a movie. Like I did not like Age of Ultron when I watched it. It made me ponder whether the payoff was going to be as good as it was, because that movie
Mm.
was just so divisive to me. Like I really, like I left the theater of Age of Ultron like, man, what are they doing? Like, where are they going with this? Like, I got it. I'll have to do it myself, the Thanos thing, but we didn't know we didn't know who Thanos was gonna become until Infinity War. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't get a chance to hear Thanos say the things that he said until Infinity War. So I didn't know going into that it was going to be as great as it was, because Age of Ultron was terrible. Like it just, to me, it was not a
I
good film.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed Age of
Like
Ultron.
I was not a fan. Like as a spectacle, it's great, right? Like I get it. Like I'm a person who enjoyed Aquaman 2 as a spectacle because it was just action. It was
Right.
people flying around, people punching things, and that's fun to me. Like Um, but I just think we're just past that now. Is like we're past the spectacle of it.
Right.
Everybody wants the Dark Knight. Everybody wants Endgame. They want these major event films, and every movie can't be that. Like I hyped up Multiverse of Madness to the point of where it could not reach my expectations, because I expected it to be like I expected Multiverse of Madness to be better than No Way Home, to be better than like all of these films that there was no way to reach those heights, no matter if Sam Raimi was directing it or not. So I think just the idea of perfection. I'm terrified of Captain America: Brave New World. I think that they should
Yeah.
shelve it. I don't think, like, as a black man, I'm elated to see a black man play Captain America. Like
Mhm.
watching Winter Soldier and Falcon and Winter Soldier, I loved it. That the whole Elijah Bradley story, I'll be the first to admit I had tears because it was that deep to me. Like that story
Awesome.
of the first Captain America is a great comic story. That should be the movie itself. That could be a
Mm.
movie. Um, Sam Wilson, what's Anthony Mackie? That's not my cap. Like like he's not my Captain America. I hate saying that as a black person. Like, but he's just like everything that Steve Rogers embodied. I don't see that in Falcon. Like even though he's a soldier, he's an airman. It's another story for another day. But I don't see them like at the end of that show. I still saw the Falcon. I never saw, even though he had the cool suit on, and like as a minority, that matters. It really does. Like it
Mhm.
really does getting to see yourself as Captain America, which was the whole point of the series. But are they going to do that well on the big screen? I don't think so. And I've heard that they've done like reshoot after reshoot. And it's like,
They've got like months of reshoots. I think it's like 6
yeah,
months planned. Like basically
yeah,
reshooting a whole new movie is basically what they're doing.
yeah. Yeah, I don't have high hopes for this. Like I don't see this. I don't see this being a great film. I do see Daredevil and I'm not Daredevil, Deadpool and Wolverine being a great film.
Mhm.
But everything else, like honestly, everything else is on the table. Like at this point, I feel like other than Daredevil, Born Again, which I feel like they figured it out after watching just that episode of him fighting Echo. I was like, okay,
Right.
they're gonna okay, y'all get it, right? Like you get it. So hopefully that translates to the Daredevil series, but I feel like honestly everything else is on the table. Like Armor Wars is for sure gone.
Oh,
I
that's
heard they
good.
were
Yeah,
making
that's
that
a good
into a
one.
movie. At some point they're like, oh, we don't want it to be a TV series. We're gonna make it into like a Disney Plus movie. That's just saying that it's the DOA. Like you might as
Mhm.
well have written its eulogy right there.
Let me throw something
I'm
out to you
trying.
real quick. Let me throw
Mhm.
something out to you. Bob Iger has also said in the past that he wants to focus on their franchises again. Do you think there's any possibility that they've taken Ironheart and Armor Wars, combined them, reshot something new, and they just call it Iron Man 4?
I hope they don't do that. That is a terrible. That would be a terrible idea. I don't think that Ironheart hit the way that they thought it was going to. Like that character was terrible in Wakanda Forever. Like I did not like her character at all. I didn't like
Yeah.
the suit makeup. I didn't like
Oh, her suit looked awful. Her
it
final
was
suit design looked like a Power Rangers show or something.
yeah, it just you had to strike Ironheart right after like you had to have shot that series right after Wakanda Forever and put it out because now she's in her 20s. Like she's not Riri
Right.
Williams anymore. She's Rihanna. I don't know her real name, but like she's not this kid anymore. She's a grown ass woman now. Like that defeats the whole purpose of like this teenager who's supposed to be MIT level genius. Like that defeats the whole purpose of Ironheart to me. Like at this point, because it's been what 3, 4 years since. Like
Oh my goodness, yeah. 2
it's been
years, I think. I think
okay. Well, it
2022, I
feels
think
like
was it's been a while,
Wakanda
yeah.
Forever feels like it came out forever ago. Like that feels like that was in phase two. Like at this point,
Yeah. I think another problem with Ironheart is she came too close after Iron Man's death, and you were forcing the audience to, like, accept her as the new Iron Man too soon, and just too much similarities with, like, the Jarvis suit voice and using the Tony Stark tech and looking like Iron Man, and I don't know, I feel like it wasn't authentically or organically done. It just kind of felt like this is the new Iron Man, accept her. And I think that might have been why she didn't pop with a lot of audience members as well. Is it was just like not my Iron Man.
I would agree with that, but in the comics, that's what they did. Like in the
Right.
comic, she like in the comics, Tony Stark is her voice, is the Jarvis voice. Like that's like I would have much rather that, like him being a mentor and the person in her ear. Like that's what I was hoping for. I know that they weren't gonna get Robert Downey Jr. to voice a movie. Like, even though they probably would pay him handsomely to voice a movie and just like come in his pajamas and voice Tony Stark
Come in his
is that like
pajamas.
yeah, like I would do that for a payday, and I'm pretty sure he would do that for a Marvel level payday too. But I just think the character just didn't work. Like, um, I hate to use this term, but like the whole excuse me, man, I'm just stuffed up right now. The whole Marvel is gone woke thing, which is something that the internet's been saying for a while,
I hate
how
it.
they
And
diversified
the
all these
MCU.
characters. Yeah. Um, I don't agree with that at all because I have a young black daughter who anytime she sees a black character on screen, she loves it, right? Especially in the superhero capacity. Like
That's
her
awesome.
seeing The Little Mermaid, that made her day seeing a black Little Mermaid, right? Um, and
That's so
that's
great.
awesome to me. It is. It will always resonate with me because she gets to see this, and my daughter's really big into science now. So seeing a Riri Williams on the screen would be amazing. But it just has to be done right, right? I'm not all
Yeah.
about putting characters in there just for the sake of putting characters in there because if it's done wrong, then she's like, "Man, I don't want to do that. Like that was not
Right.
cool at all. Like who wants to be her? No. Like it needs to be great. Like these characters can't like when I saw her in Wakanda Forever, I was excited because I was excited for the character of Riri Williams, but it just wasn't done well. Like it wasn't there was so many things done wrong in that film that didn't prop her up to be the next Iron Man. Even though she would never be called the next Iron Man, like she's Ironheart for a reason, right? She's not trying to replace him. She's just her own version of it. But it just was done poorly,
Yeah.
and that's why that show didn't get greenlit immediately because it just didn't test well. It never hit with the audience it was supposed to hit with. She was supposed to be this rebellious genius who was none of those things in that film. Like it was man, they really they messed that character up in the film with the betrayal, and it that show will probably never see the light of day. She might show up in Young Avengers, maybe, but I wouldn't even expect her to see her there. Like that's how bad. Like Wakanda Forever is almost a forgotten MCU film at this point because people don't like to
Mm,
talk about it because of Chadwick Boseman's passing.
right.
It's like a movie you want to love because of why it was made. It was made as a love letter to Chadwick Boseman, but at the end of the day, after you move past that fact, it's not a great film. Like you can't I love Ryan Coogler. He's a great director, but that wasn't a good film. And me saying that says a lot. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't to me, at least, and it didn't do that character any justice.
Yeah. Well, these comments do get me a little bit more optimistic for Marvel's future. It sounds like they're really taking it seriously. They really want to get it back on track, and they're doing everything they can. So, we're almost out of time here. So,
Mhm.
do we buy or sell these comments from Bob Iger? Do we think
Oh
secretly
yeah.
canceling
Oh, I'll
projects?
buy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm definitely buying.
I'll buy it.
They're
I
definitely
just never tell us what you canceled, and just let it be.
yeah. That's the smartest thing because like if you don't think about it, I would never have thought of Ironheart if we didn't have this conversation. It would just be a character, oh,
Right.
10 years, like, oh, whatever happened to Riri? Like, which would probably never happen anyway, but it would, you just kind of forget about it, like, because there's so much content to be watched, you know?
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being here, joining me today, dude. We had a lot of great topics to talk about, and this was awesome. So please tell people where they can find you, man.
Well, you can find me at Have You Seen That with T YouTube channel. I'm working. I may put out a Spaceman review. I don't think I will. I think I said enough here today. Um, but I'll definitely be dropping a Damsel review very soon. I'm gonna watch that. probably right after we get off this podcast. And then my Ricky Stanicky. I'm gonna watch your review. I saw that you reviewed it, and I kind of held off on watching a review until I reviewed it because I didn't want the inception of your thoughts to go into my head. But yeah, that those two things are gonna come this weekend, and I'm still debating whether I want to see Imaginary or not. I don't know. I'm not
I've
really
already made
sure.
up my mind. I'm not gonna see. I've heard nothing but terrible things about that. Just awful things.
So, well, that just sold me. Then I'm not gonna step out of my home this weekend to go see that. But yeah, so Ricky Stanicky and Damsel, and yeah, you can catch me on YouTube and on Threads. Is that the new hot thing? Threads. There you
Threads,
go.
yeah, that's the new
Haven't
hot
seen that
thing.
with
James Gunn's platform of choice.
you. Yes.
All right. Well, yeah, his link is down in the description below, guys. Definitely check him out. I want to thank you again for being here, everyone who's watching. I'm Zach. I'm here all the time. You can just find me where you're at right now. And that's where I live. And take care, guys. We'll see you again next week.